Gail from Gail's Bookish Things. Today I finished my reading for book club, The Woman Who Smashed Codes by Jason Fagoni, I think is how you pronounce his last name. This was a really good book. It's a very fascinating read. I find biographies a little bit harder to get through. The detail, of course, is really necessary to setting the stage of a good book, understanding the importance and the significance of the times and what was going on, makes what the character did seem deeper and more significant. And that was what I experienced in this book. It was a lot of detail, but you really had to have the detail. And of course, that's what a biography is. But this was a fascinating read about Elizebeth Friedman, who in the 1920s through World War II was very significant in smashing codes, breaking codes that were very helpful in catching illegal importers, as well as breaking codes of the Nazis, and also different codes going on during World War I that were intercepted by the Coast Guard through radio waves. So this tells about how her and her husband met, where they met. They were both into code breaking, and they were both very hugely instrumental in making code breaking what it is today. A lot more is done on computer now, of course, but this was the beginning. This was before people had that. This was how people figured out secret messages and how they even got to where they could determine how a machine was wired and designed based on cracking the code. So it gives you all kinds of code breaking vocabulary, what a cryptanalysis is, what a cryptogram is, what a code is, what a cipher is. A lot of those words are interchangeable. But I found it really a good read. Again, biographies are a little bit harder for me. I guess just enjoy fiction generally when I'm reading for fun. And this is for fun. It's our book club. We choose a new book every month. This time we had a longer space between our meetings. We had called off a month, and so we had extra time to read this, which was good because it was long and it was detailed, but absolutely really amazing. If you are interested in any kind of spy stuff or how code breaking goes on, you will find this fascinating. It does contain quite a few pages of notes in the appendix or the index. Where there's an index and there's a notes section. As you can see, it's a good chunk. So the overall read is slightly shorter than it looks like, but I would say it's a worthwhile read. It's an interesting subject. We don't hear a lot about it. Elizebeth Friedman, until more recently, kind of she wasn't famous like maybe she could or should have been during her lifetime, but fascinating intellectual person. Her and her husband both were early code breakers. I was trying to show you there are 341 pages to the story, and then of course the notes, which of course I don't bother reading that, but that might be interesting to somebody. If you're more intellectual than you'll like that, I guess. Anyway, I recommend it if you like biographies, and even if you aren't particularly drawn to biographies, it'll be a challenging read, and you'll be amazed at what these people were capable of doing. And really the human brain are the right people that are wired that way, what they can do, even without the help of computers. So I suggest this book. I think it was really good. I'd like to know if you read it and what you thought. The Woman Who Smashed Codes. And again, it was by about Elizebeth Friedman. You can visit a place in, it's called The Villa, and it's in Geneva, Illinois. It used to be part of not really a compound, but a campus that was funded and run and lived on by a man named George Fabian, who first hired Elizebeth and her husband. They were not married yet. They met there fell in love, later got married. But this man was very eccentric, multi-millionaire in the early 20s and 1920s. And he had all kinds of obsessions and scientific things that he was really into. And he hired Elizabeth first as a code breaker, believing there were hidden codes in Shakespeare written by Francis Bacon. She and then her later husband eventually thought that was not true, and they left and went on to work for the Coast Guard, for the Army, for the government. They really she really made the FBI look good, and they, according to the book, Hoover was kind of took advantage of that and elevated his position, or his fame, and it was really her that did the work. But anyway, this George Fabian, you can visit his home. He was the one who first hired her when she was like right out of college, and it's where he and his wife lived, and it was this just big network of scientific brains working together to do all kinds of things. So that is something you can tour if you like to sometimes see background places where books are based on or where they started. So that's a day trip or an overnight trip I'm hoping to do sometime with my husband and maybe some friends of mine that have read the book. So anyway, there you go. The Woman Who Smashed Codes by Jason Fagoni, and it was a national bestseller. True story of love, spies, and the unlikely heroine who outwitted America's enemies. Very good. It would make a really excellent miniseries, I think, if it was done correctly, as all good stories. Thank you for watching. We will talk to you soon and have a great weekend. See you later. Bye.